you're here on my channel watching this video. And chances are, if you've been brought here to watch this video, it's usually through one of varying different routes. Maybe you saw me build a budget pedal board and play along with the Deftones, or maybe you heard me talk about music magazines, or maybe you saw me play some questionable Amiga games. Maybe you saw me build a PlayStation 2 controller, or a silly little Bop It controller, or maybe you saw me build a guitar. On this channel, I like to just talk about things that I enjoy and that make me happy. And one of the things that I enjoy, and I have enjoyed for a very long time now, is Doom. Yeah, if you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you've probably realised that I am quite enamoured by Doom, and chances are wherever I go, I have a copy of Doom with me. God, that's sad. Years ago now, I made a video about how much I love Doom and how varyingly different each console version of Doom. As someone who grew up playing on PC, but then left that scene completely the moment the PlayStation came out, Doom on console has always been varying degrees of either okay, not great, well, it's close, well, you know, it's there, so on and so forth. A couple of years ago, Bethesda stealth dropped Doom and Doom 2 for the PlayStation 4 as part of like QuakeCon, I think. And I put out a video saying they're awful. Like, these are very, very bad ports. But I thought it was important to point out that, I mean, I could just say they were bad, but then I needed to give you something to look at. So I looked at the Activision-made PS3 ports. I broke it down into like little minutiae, a death by 1,000 cuts, and how this just didn't quite work, or this wasn't quite right, or this just... And eventually it built up and built up and built up, to the point where I'm like, look, these are awful, don't buy them. And then I had to make another video saying, hey, guess what? They fixed a load of stuff, and it was getting there, but it still wasn't great. And wouldn't you believe it, they've done it again. But this time, they've actually done it right. Nightdive is one of my favorite developers, full stop. They have this incredible engine called the Kex engine, which they've had for a long, long time now, and their port work is incredible, specifically on consoles. So, I mean, yes, PC porting has been a thing forever, and if you want something, chances are you can play it. And Doom, no different. Any flavour you want, you can find it on PC, but on console, you basically get what you're given. And then along comes Nightdive. Nightdive had previously worked on the Shadow Man remake, the Power Slave remake, both the Quake remakes. Why aren't they making Doom? Like, why not do Doom? It's just there. Just let them port Doom to the Kex engine. And they have. So yeah, if I had to specify what it is about Nightdive Studios that defines their incredible work, it's their attention to detail. Taking a game and porting it to a different system is one thing, and we've seen that for decades now. But what they do is go right down and just get into the nitty-gritty. It's not a case of just porting it across, it's a case of porting it across and then looking at the limitations of the technology at the time and trying to just work around and see how something can be improved but not fundamentally changed. And that is exactly what they have done with Doom. It's on a new engine that still feels like Doom. It's got HUD options and resolution options and still feels like Doom. It's got motion control. It's got keyboard and mouse control on console, and it still feels like Doom. It's got a million different controller options and still feels like Doom. They are just the best in the business at doing that. Taking something, moving it to something else, completely taking it apart and put it back together, and it still feel like the original product. I think possibly the best example of this was something that really confused me at first because of the wealth of options. Like, you've got options for auto run, you've got options for HUD size, all different kind of sliders for everything, but one of the options that I cannot find for whatever reason is the option to turn off auto weapon switching, which I thought was a really weird omission, knowing what I know about Nightdive and their incredible attention to detail, like, why would they leave that out? And it wasn't until I started playing around with it I realized that that was an intentional choice. And the reason I can say that is because they gave one weapon a safety catch, and that weapon is the rocket launcher. You can fire any weapon by holding down the trigger and it will constantly fire, whether it be pistol, shotgun, plasma rifle, whatever. If you pick up another weapon and switch to it, it will just keep firing if you hold that trigger down. So if you're firing the pistol, pick up a shotgun, the shotgun will raise and you will just keep firing it and you will never need to take your finger off the trigger. The only weapon that doesn't work for is the rocket launcher. The rocket launcher has a safety catch on it. Run out of ammo for a certain gun and it switches to the rocket launcher, or you're circle strafing and you're holding down the trigger with, say, the minigun and you pick up a rocket launcher, the rocket launcher will not fire until you release the trigger and then press it in again. Why they chose that, I don't know, but it was definitely a choice. And for the first time since I think the 3DO port, we have a brand new soundtrack of the original Bobby Prince music. Now, I know the PlayStation and Doom 64 had the Aubrey Hodges soundtrack, which I love. I think it's great. But I don't think we have seen remixes of Bobby Prince's original work since the 3DO. And obviously for this job, they were going to get Andrew Holshort. And obviously he's going to do incredible work. He really does bring that pumping energy. I mean, this had to be the hardest job for him to do, because he has to do a metal version of Bobby Prince's sort of like metal MIDI disco, which were based on Pantera and Alice in Chains and Slayer. Like, the thin line that man had to walk by remixing those MIDIs and not just play Them Bones by Alice in Chains or This Love by Pantera. It had to be incredibly hard to take something that was something else and not revert it back to what it was originally. And also, the little Easter eggs he throws in. Like, my personal favourite is in the first level of Doom 2 entryway, the little triplet riff that was made famous by Meshuggah and Gojira. Once you hear it, you're like, oh, that's really cool. Like, because I love Aubrey Hodges' work. That sort of like ethereal, almost like a horror soundtrack was cool. But then I also like Bobby Prince, and this is like a third thing. This feels way more energetic and pumping, and you feel you're being pushed forward by the music rather than being pulled into a dark corner by Aubrey Hodges' work. It's incredible how much it feels like the music is speeding up the gameplay. And lastly, one of the things I want to sort of brush on is the amount of content you get. Just the package itself, even though it's called Doom 1 and 2, which I don't know whether they were going for that Tony Hawk's thing where it was Tony Hawk's 1 plus 2, but calling it Doom 1 and Doom 2 is a terrible name. It should have been just called like the Doom Collection, or just call it Eternal Doom or something like that, because not only do you get Doom 1 and 2, you also get TNT, you also get Plutonia, you also get the Master Levels. That's a given. But then on top of that, you also get Sigil, the Xbox 360 No Rest for the Living, and you get a brand new chapter made by Nightdive. And not only is it made by Nightdive, it's made using the assets that Nightdive have discovered, I guess, in the basement of like ID Software. They've found the old 3.5-inch or 5.25-inch floppy disks with all this like original asset work on it and built a level out of it. They've built new weapons out of it. This expansion called Legacy of Rust is probably the reason to play this package. It is fantastic. The level layouts, the level design shows how far we have come in 30 years from just a box room with monsters in it and a few monster closets that open up in various places, to these super elaborate landscapes where monsters seem to funnel you into new directions, and the levels tend to break out with verticality that we never saw 30 years ago. They should have just called this package Legacy of Rust, or Doom Legacy of Rust, because Legacy of Rust is the reason to play this. But with every good thing comes something not so good. So one of the things that was in the vault was an enemy called the Ghoul, I think it's called. The new enemies, for the most part, are really, really cool. You've got like mini spider masterminds, they're pretty cool. You've got these like big horned enemies in cloaks that go around throwing fire, they're really cool. But then you have the ghouls. And all I will say about the ghouls is that the ghouls are the answer to question, how can we make lost souls more annoying? They're faster, they come in groups of half a dozen, and now they have projectiles. Ooh, irritating. But they use the enemies in a way where they group you and try and move the combat into different directions. So you're not just standing in a corner or like doorway camping or anything like that. You have to kind of move and be on your feet, explore. And as far as getting this package goes, even if you manage to exhaust all of the content from those, you have a mod section which just links to the Doom repository, and you can just download anything. I've already got Thatcher's Tech Base, the arcade edition and the normal edition. I've already got Simpsons Doom on there. Sigil 2 is on there. There's loads of stuff on there. Just go onto the mod section and the world is your oyster. It just feels like an infinite amount of Doom on an engine that actually works. The strangest thing, or the thing I was least expecting, I bought Doom 1 and 2 a couple of years ago when I made those videos. Because I owned Doom 1 and 2, this package called Doom 1 and Doom 2 was free on the PlayStation Store. Now, the only reason I think that Bethesda are honouring previous purchases of the Unity port is because eventually they're going to delist the Unity ports. Because even with all the work they've put into it, and they did put a lot of work into it, it's a pale reflection of just how good the Nightdive edition is. And the Nightdive, this Nightdive collection is genuinely now the de facto way to play this, especially on PlayStation. And the very last thing I want to talk about is how much fun I am having playing the multiplayer. Like, it's got crossplay. Crossplay is enabled, and I have been playing 16-player deathmatch in entryway. And so you don't have access to every level. They've basically just culled it down to 1 or 2 levels from each game. But they are the most popular ones. So obviously you've got Dead Simple from Doom 2. Obviously you've got Entryway from Doom 2. Doom 1, yes, you've got, you know, E1M1. But then they've also added something called the ID Deathmatch Pack number 1, which leads me to believe there will be updates in the future with more map packs. And the map packs themselves, not bad. Like, they're really not bad. You've got some maps in there. I think there's a couple of them seem very familiar, so they're probably something I've played a lot of on Quake and Quake 3, I think. But obviously in the textures of Doom and sort of with the assets of Doom. The deathmatch is so much fun. And if you ever wanna play Doom, I am there. I am 100% there. Just hit me up. My username's the same on PlayStation Network. Like, just hit me up, invite me to a game of Doom, and I will accept. I'm going to end this video by just showing the very first thing I did as soon as I got this package was just turn on Entryway, 16 players, 10 minutes, no frag limit. I have not belly laughed for 10 minutes straight for a long time. But if you own Doom 1 and Doom 2, there's really no reason to not just download it and have a look and play Legacy of Rust. Play that multiplayer and just have fun. Alright, cool. Peace. That was genuinely one of the funniest bits of unhinged lunacy ever.